Welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Chris Welton, and today I have a special guest. I'm going to start out real quick with how we met. I was introduced to her via text message from one of my closest friends, and we got on a phone call, and she asked me how I was doing. I said, well, it's a beautiful day in Zionsville, Indiana. And she's like, where are you at? And I told her, and we ended up living like 2 miles from each other. So how weird is that we're both in central Indiana? But, and then we were able to grab lunch and do some other things, but I've really been looking forward to this podcast and welcome to the show, Whitney.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. And I was equally as pleased to hear how it all worked out. Just a random call turns into an ongoing friendship.
Yeah, without a doubt. And we have a lot of the same interests. I think we're in a lot of the same trajectory, different clients for now, like the areas we're in, but I think we have a lot of the same beliefs and desire to impact people and change people's lives. And there's not a lot of us out there that really believe we can do it. And I think there's two believers on the call here today that can get there. And, let's start out with the term or the title coach first, because when I told people I was leaving my corporate job to become a coach, I got a lot of flack. Like there's a lot of people that are, I'm a coach, but they weren't good at life beforehand. So how are they going to be good at a coach? So I'd like to discuss the transition from the corporate world to the coaching space and anything that you had to overcome for self-belief in that category, and also getting the believers of the people who are closest to you.
Yeah, well, I had the exact same reaction. And I was actually shocked because I thought, people know that I spent 20 years in corporate. I was in an executive role before I transitioned out of, working for a Fortune 500 company for 17 years. And I thought they're going to understand it's me with the skill set of coaching. But I did quickly learn there's a stigma with coaching because anyone can call themselves a coach, technically, even though Some of us have different experiences or credentials or whatever it might be. But it's really in how you impact people. Right. And when I think of myself as a coach I think about how can I help people go where they not only want to go, skills, experiences, career-wise, but also where they need to go. And I think one of the values of what you and I get to do, we get to sit there, unbiased and be able to really be a sounding board for our people, bringing, advisory and insights from our experiences when needed, but then also being the mirror for people to say, is this going to get you there? If not, let's do the hard work to create that roadmap to lead you where you want to go.
Yeah. It sounds like, I feel like that every day. It's like I'm creating another roadmap for another client, trying to really be dialed in to help them go to that next spot. And when I had the opportunity to leave my job and go into the coaching space, for me, it was really about the number of people who wanted to be positively impacted inside my organization was very small. Most people just wanted a paycheck, right? And then I found an opportunity to get out there and help other people that really want the help. But I think the biggest opportunity for me, at least in my space, was we had such a gap in leadership from what leaders were saying they should do to what they were actually doing to the people on the level just below them. So how could I close that gap? How could I create better leaders and even better people that are on the second tier to become leaders? Because I'd done a lot of the wrong things in 30 plus years in business, right? I'd hired the wrong people, worked for the wrong companies, showed up with the wrong mindset, tried to lead with an iron fist sometimes, just stuff I didn't know any better than. So I'm curious, as you stepped away from that role and you're going back into these places and having conversations with people, how do you really figure out what it is that they want and what it is that they need? Like what is that? How does that translate for you?
Yeah. So a lot of times I'll start with some form of assessment, and it's not for everyone. There are certainly scenarios where people don't need a 360 or some sort of stakeholder interviews or whatever it might be to really get a view of how they're seen externally. Right. Because I think what people get confused about is there is what I'm intending to do. There's the effort that I put in, and then there's our results. And then there's how everyone else views you. And, sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow that you can intend to be a great leader. You can mean well, but how you're doing it is just not cutting it. Right. It's not who you want to be. And so a lot of times my work with clients starts up front with saying, hey, look, this is what your brand is. This is what how your impact is rippling throughout your org, whether it's with, direct reports or just your business partners, and how does that align with what you want? And I think one of the things and one of the reasons why, I don't know, I'm curious to see if you experience this. So often, I think there's two things that happen in the business space. People are not going to have the honest conversation with their leader. Like, this is what I'm really struggling with, because they write our paychecks. They decide if we get promoted. So there's a fear, like, are they going to lose confidence in me? Are they going to wonder, like, this isn't who I thought I hired? And so we're not going to have the real conversations. Like, I'm struggling when I go in front of this executive team to have the same confidence, to have the same impact as I do when I present to you, right? We're not going to say that. We're just going to show up, do our best, and then maybe not get the result that we want, right? And get the feedback. And so that holds people back, which is where you and I can play. The other thing is that a lot of times in the business space, that it's going so fast, and we're treating the symptoms. We're treating what's on the surface. So it's like, how many times do I have people that come to me and say, I've been told to get to a VP or a C level, I need to, build my executive presence. It's like that is, first of all, you have to unpack what that means. A lot of times it starts with a lack of clarity. But what is driving the lack of executive presence is what I want to talk about with my clients, because it's the stuff below the surface that is creating the symptoms that are seen. And that's hard work to do, because we can't always see it clearly because of what I just said before, the intent, the effort, we're confusing that with what's actually happening within us. And we got to unpack that to help them on that journey. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So, and it gives me more questions to ask. Thank you.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the first space of not being able to be vulnerable with your leader or your who your direct report you're reporting to, do you feel that's more of a problem of the client you're serving, or a problem of lack of good leadership who's above them?
Both and.
Okay.
So it starts with, if you don't report to someone that you trust and that you think is in it with you side by side, it's almost impossible. Like I can have a willingness to be vulnerable, but if I say this, it might jeopardize how I'm viewed in my career path. Like, I'm not going to do it, right? I'll go say it to somebody else who probably doesn't, have the same view of me, so they can provide some help, but it's not that, right? It's not that same dynamic. But I do think that in our minds, we think we have to go to someone and say, I'm just not confident in this situation. You don't have to go and say that. We don't know how to say it. Like, listen, Chris, like, I see you in meetings and you're so good at this thing. Tell me how you approach this. Tell me how you think about putting together that, that pitch, or how you put together that strategy. Like, I can develop myself through asking really good questions and not saying, I'm nervous and I'm not good at this and I want to be you. Right. So there's again, I think we run at such a fast pace when you're a high achiever and you're driven, that sometimes we get in our own way. And a lot of what I do is I get people out of their own way, whether they're driving towards individual goal or they're trying to be leaders. And I always say, like, leadership is a choice. And so we can be leaders as someone who runs our own business and doesn't manage people, or we run bigger organizations. But the thing I ask everybody is, are you a leader that people actually want to follow? Are you a leader that people say, like, I really love reporting to this person because they have this impact? And I'll be honest, I think a small percentage of people really fit into that category. And if we had more of that, it unlocks a whole world for us as individuals and for our companies.
Yeah, I would go a step further and say, are you a leader you would follow? Right?
100%.
Because no one's harder in the world on Chris Welton than Chris Welton. And I got a feeling it's the same at Whitney. Like, no one's harder on Whitney than Whitney is. So, like, if I'm not living up to the expectations of what I would want as a leader, why would someone follow me? And I really spend a lot of time thinking that through, and just the things I focus on a daily basis to try to be a better leader and a better example to my clients and even my kids. And we were talking about our kids right before we got on the call here. Like, because I think too many people fall short from that. They become this leader or want to be a leader that they would not follow, but they think everybody else will. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, like, for me, if I can't be the leader that I would follow, I don't care if anybody else wants to follow me. And it took a long time to get there. Like, I was a leader in multiple different industries. over my career, but I had to be the leader that someone else wanted me to be from a higher up, not who I wanted to be as a leader. And I think I fell short in a lot of areas because I spent too much time trying to conform to what someone else wanted me to be, and I wasn't that person. Right? I still had a lot of strengths I could bring to the table, but I was always trying to be the guy who was ahead of me, trying to lead like him. Is that? I mean, what do you think about that?
This is 100% my experience. I talk often about the fact that I started leading teams when I was in my probably 27, so mid 20s ish, and oftentimes I was the youngest person in the room, and I was the only female on the entire West Coast when I started leading teams. So what did I do? I'm like, hey, I'm a great individual contributor. I know how to drive results, and I get this job. I don't really know what it means to lead. Like I did when I played college sports, but it's a little different, And so I just looked at the people around me, my boss, his boss, other leaders who were like, setting the bar in our sales culture. And I started just taking pieces from them. And I lost the very thing that made me great, which is the passion and the energy. And the thing that draws people to me is that just the way that I connect with people. And so I had two leaders, or a lot of leaders around me who were ex-military, and they were just very poised, very matter of fact. And they had a different style than I did. It was just, very, very little like connection. And I'm not saying that's a military thing. I'm just saying like that was their style, and they both had the same style and the same experiences. And so I took a page from their book. And it wasn't until one day I was with someone who reported to me, and through casual conversation, he said something that I just like struck me. He said, people always are curious what it's like to work for you. And I mean, it like stopped me in that moment. I said, well, what do you mean? Just completely oblivious to the effect that we have as leaders and how we show up. Even if people are getting great results working for us, if they don't feel good doing it, it matters. And so long story short is, he kind of said, well, you're just so intense, and you've been successful, and people wonder, is it like your way because you've always been successful and you're confident and you speak with such conviction. And I mean, it cut me to the core. I thought, wow, that's what the people who don't know me are saying. That's not going to compel people to work for me, to want to work with me, that's not who I want to be. And that started my journey. And I'll tell you, it took me far too long to figure out how to be me in the leadership space. But when I did, results are one thing, but how you feel in the job, I don't know if you experience this, it's game changing. When you can be you, unapologetically you, own it, it doesn't mean you're unfiltered. It just means you're intentional. You're deeply intentional. Yeah. And that is when people are just drawn to you. There's just something that changes when you can really get in the headspace of being grounded and anchored in who you are, in having it show up in a way that makes people feel compelled to work with you.
This is so good. So like I had a similar situation happen to me years ago. My mentor, the guy I looked up to, when people would say I was Greg Jr. or Greg 2.0, I thought it was a compliment. Mm-hmm. And then I had somebody pull me aside one day and go, hey, that's not a compliment. People don't like him as much. Like you need to realize that you're the reason why people are here and why people are working, because of you, not because you're trying to be like him. So yeah, what an awakening that was. And then I realized that I had more value than that. But when you're doing that, if you're in a spot where you're trying to be that other leader that's not who you are, authentically who you are, I finally realized that put ceilings on what was possible for me. Mm-hmm. Because being them, I was only going to go as far as they've gone. And my ambitions and dreams were to go bigger and farther than that person had ever gone, right? Until I got myself out from under that, I didn't realize it was even possible. So as you've exited Fortune 500 and the corporate America and being the only woman on that sales team, like what have you realized that there was ceilings placed on you inside that, and now there's no ceiling based off what you can do?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why. The first is I got into this work because as an athlete, I had to really work on my mindset. Like in those pressure situations, you got to figure out how to manage yourself, how to activate a mindset that's going to fuel you. And that's a practice. I know how you view it. I know we do a lot of the same work, but to me, it's a
Mhm.
discipline that you create.
Yes.
And I realized coming from a small town in Indiana to going to University of Virginia around kids that were much smarter than me, came from different backgrounds, like higher pedigree. I was like, whoa, it was good and bad because I saw that ceiling lifted, the ceiling that I saw for myself growing up as a kid, because I only knew what I knew. It opened up, but at the same time, I'm like, but I'm not them. And so there's that work that you have to do where you can either look back and say like, well, I'm not them, I don't have that. Or you can go, yeah, but I'm me, and they're not me in a lot of ways. And so you have to lean into those things that make you great. But it started there. And then as I started leading, I realized that when I led with and I don't want to use the word authentic approach, but when I led intentionally, anchored in the leadership principles that I hold myself to, that is when it's just like, I don't want to call it magic because that's, it's not that, but it's like, it just becomes easier. It becomes easier. And in the interaction, it changes from interaction to connection with people, whether it's your customers and you're in a sales job, whether you're leading a big org, it just changes when you kind of open up the ceiling and you start asking yourselves like, who am I? Who am I as a leader? And I ask people often when I'm either working with them one-on-one is, I'm working with a lot of high level leaders. And, I talk like, what's been your strategy to get where you've gotten? Oh yeah. Like I've read the books, I've done the course, I've done this. And I'm like, great. I'm like, when's the last time you sat with yourself for a solid hour and you said, who am I really as a leader?
Yeah.
And most people are like, I mean, maybe 10 years ago, probably never. And that's the first question you have to ask yourself, because you can't show up every day and be somebody that operates with intention if you don't even know who you are. But that's where you find what makes you great, is that discovery, that reflection.
Yeah. And you can't expect others to show up if you're that way, if you're not showing up, right? Like, it's like, there's a whole process with that. And, you can only lead people to the habits and disciplines you have for yourself.
Absolutely.
So like, if you're wanting to lead people at a higher level, you better have higher levels of discipline and habits that create that opportunity for you to lead to that higher level. Like for me as a coach, if I'm not doing the things that I say I do, then what's my value? Like, I'm not grabbing a book and just regurgitating pages 7 through 10 of this book I read and going, this is how you do it. No, I talk about the strategies and the things that I've done to overcome the adversities in my life to get there. Like, these are all proven tactics or strategies or frameworks. So let's go into the next part, framework. Like if you have, when you bring somebody on and you really want to talk about mindset first, it's so funny. Like, I remember when I first heard about like meditating and mindset and all these things, I'm like, oh, whatever. Like, because my mentor told me that was a joke, like stay away from those people. They're hippies.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
My dad actually wrote a book on meditation, right? Like, and I never read it until later in life. So how do you address the people when you first talk about mindset with them that are like, yeah, that's Whitney, that's not what I need. Like, how do you come across and handle that?
Yeah, well, I usually try to hit them with some facts first, which is there's been tons of research on, we have 75,000 on average, 65 to 75,000 thoughts per day, right? As a human being. And 75% of those are negative and 90% are repetitive. So what story are you telling yourself? Because you're telling yourself a story, and a lot of times it's subconscious, right? Like, we hear it, but we don't really hear it. And I think when people, I mean, this is like research. It's not my research. It's like out there forever. And it makes them think, like, really, what am I telling myself? Because it truly, truly matters. And I mean, like, we're both into sports. If you look at these athletes, I like, you have your One Jordan book, right? But Michael Jordan, the type of work he did to visualize, the type of work he did with, Phil Jackson as his coach, like in meditation and in mindset management, like that matters. It's proven to matter in the biggest arena. So why does it matter to us as a person that is running our own business or is trying to hit a certain goal? It does. So I don't get a lot of pushback that it matters. I think It's the discipline that people have to realize that you just have to practice it every single day. You have to be willing to slow down. Like I tell people, 10 minutes on your drive home. I want you to really think, like, just hit rewind and go back through your day and just think, how did I show up? How did I feel in that moment? What sort of feedback did I get? What cues was I getting from the person I was meeting with? And then what was I telling myself? What have I been telling myself all day? And that helps us start to understand what that narrative is. And then we can make put the pieces in place to start shifting that to what we want it to be. Because it 100% matters. And the people that are most successful, whether they tell you or not, they're doing this work.
Yeah. So I'm competing in a high rocks competition a week from Saturday in Dallas, Texas. And I'm not sure 100% why I'm doing it, but I am doing it. And for the last 2 months, every day, at least once a day, I've sat in the quiet with my eyes closed and I've walked through every exercise, every round of what that's going to look like and feel like. On where I want my heart rate to be in between rounds, where I feel I'm probably going to need more hydration, where I'm going to need to take a little bit of a breather to try to get recouped, to have the energy to push the sled next, to do the different things. So I've done this competition already 60 plus times in my head. Mm-hmm. And what people don't realize is when you've done that, your brain will start working and believing like you've already accomplished it, right? You've already done it. I do the same thing before we get on stage at a big keynote. I go over in my head multiple times on what that looks like, what the crowd looks like, what it feels like to step on stage. Because like anybody else, I get nervous about things.
Sure.
But if I've already done it multiple times, how differently will I show up? And it's legit. Like I show up differently. And to go more into mindset, I do these things called I am statements. And I found a video the other day from 3 years ago. And it was a big list of my I am statements I'd posted. And one of the I am statements was, I'm a best-selling author. Okay, well, I'm a best-selling author now. Another one was, I'm a keynote speaker. Like I put those things out there and conditioned myself to work towards them. And it's so powerful when you actually do those things. And you hear some athletes talk about it and believing in it and what they're going to accomplish. But you're right. In corporate America, there's not enough of that. But the people that believe in it tend to win at a way higher level than the people that don't.
Absolutely. Well, what you're talking about to me is, so in one of my frameworks that I don't say I teach it, but I pull things into coaching. I don't follow a curriculum, but I talk to people about what I like to call activating your power zone. So, we always look at an athlete who just rose above and crushed it in a game. We're like, oh, they went beast mode. Or we talk about marathoners. They got their second wind, as if it's kind of a fluke or something that is like limited to the top 1%. Completely false, right? It is a practice. Those people didn't get there without the practice. And I can assure you, because I do this work with my clients, you can do it too. Activating your power zone to me is about the place where you are mentally at your best. You're aligned. You may be nervous, right? But you're confident. Like the confidence outweighs the nerves. You're grounded in your readiness for wherever you are. And when you're in that power zone, you can rise above even the most difficult conversation at work. I mean, I've had people, when I mastered this, a great example is, and I'll go back to a little bit of the tactical for a sec, but I was at work with someone that I had a challenging relationship with. And we're having a conversation that I actually went to this person to talk about how someone in his org had come to me. And I didn't want to jump in. I wanted to kind of brainstorm with him and see if he wanted to take the lead, or, like I didn't have to have the conversation. I was trying to do the right thing. Like, what would I want as a leader? And I went to this person who, had a reputation of being a little bit hot-headed, and he just, he lit me up. He's basically yelling at me. Well, let me tell you what I think about you. And I'm thinking, like, I didn't even say, I didn't say anything about what I said. Hey, here's something that came to me. Here's some thoughts. How can I help? And just defensiveness just lit me up. In that moment, I had to sit there while he yelled at me and say, who do I want to be? How am I going to get myself into the headspace where I'm going to flip this to be productive? Because it doesn't matter if I'm right or I'm wrong in this moment. What matters is, how's this conversation going to end? Am I going to walk out of here being like, that was a person that I'm proud of being, or am I going to hit him at his level? And when you have this practice in these moments, I'm not perfect and you won't be perfect, but you can rise above. And I just sat there calm and, I said, hey, you look emotional. I don't think this is going to be productive. Appreciate your feedback on me. Thank you. And let's pick this up another time. If you want to talk about it, if not, no worries. Just left the room. Right? No big deal. And so we can be under immense amounts of pressure to hit a number, solving a problem with one of our customers, and we can utilize this. But activating your power zone requires you to know the energizers that help you flip the switch. And whether it's an I am statement, whether it's meditation, whether it's like, here's how I prepare before something big. And it also requires you to know your depleters, the things that pull you away from that zone. And oftentimes creating your power zone starts with a routine. And like you and I talked about our morning routines, they're similar in a lot of ways. But whatever your routine is, routine before a meeting, routine before your work day, routine before you come home and you interface with your kids and your family after work, the routine-based stuff is the easiest way to start identifying, what do I need to be the person that I want to be at my best? And that's how I think these people that accomplish miraculous things are able to manage themselves to greatness.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. You're right. People look at it, they don't understand my mindset or what discipline really looks like. And they're like, did you see what they did in this game? I can't believe this is what he did. And one of the things that I focus on a lot is I call it receipts. And I love to pull receipts from the past on things I've overcome or gotten through. And what people do, these incredible athletes, and I think it's why you see a lot of CEOs are extreme athletes too, right? They push themselves to physical limits. That's why I do this physical limit stuff I do, just to prove that I can get to where I need to go in a tough spot. It's all the work they put in the dark or the unseen hours, right? It's the extra work they put in that people don't realize that they're doing. And that's the difference between someone who's average and someone who's great. And if you're willing to you can be average at anything, but you can be great at anything too if you really put in the extra work and you're committed to it. And most people just won't do the work. Whitney, they just won't do it, right? Like, I'm curious from a coaching perspective, what do you do when you have a client who continues to pay you, but they're not doing the work? Like, I've had that happen recently. Like, how do you address that?
And that is a great question. It's a tough one. So I've never fired a client because, I try to meet them where they're at, but I just have an honest conversation. Like, hey, look, you're paying me a good chunk of money to work with you. Here's what I see. And how do I better help you? And a lot of times they're like, oh no, well, it's this and that, and I'm busy. And I've canceled the last 4 calls because I got called into this meeting. And I'm like, I get it. But, should we just pause? Should we just pause for now? And then when you're ready to come back and really engage and truly take the stuff we talked about and go do it, it'll be more valuable for you. So I've learned that those moments, like sometimes just the hard, like, I don't think this is working. Let's part ways. It's more like, I get it. I see it. And it's that catalyst where we can have the conversation. What's in your way? And I'll tell you, oftentimes, I don't know what you experience. My experience is it's fear. It's overwhelm. Mm-hmm. It's like, you said something that I fundamentally believe is that everyone can be great. I think majority of what determines their greatness is what lies within them. But it's so overwhelming when you know this. I'm living it right now as a keynote speaker, trying to advance my keynote practice. It's like, I want to be way up here and I'm like here today, right? Well, the space between those two is so big. It's like, I don't even want to do it, right? That's what we tell ourselves. Like, I don't know, it's risky. I might fail, but that's the work. And in every little win builds momentum. And sure enough, like, it doesn't have to be like this. You can make big leaps. And that's the value of doing this work. Someone said something to me, and I've thought about this in a different way, but this really struck me. Someone said, what if you knew you were 21 failures away from that goal, the goal you really want, the person you really want to be? Would you go do it then? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's the uncertainty of, if I do all this, am I going to disappoint myself? Am I going to fail? And it's like, you got to believe, like, I'm just a limited number of failures away from being that. So I just got to do the work.
Yeah, I love to do the work. I one of the keynotes I talk about doing the work, being the hardest worker in the room, and then I come behind it and say the hardest worker in the room is relevant if you're not the biggest believer in yourself in the room too. Because I can go do all the work in the world I want, but if I don't believe I have an opportunity to get there, it doesn't matter, right? Like I have to believe in myself that I can overcome anything that comes my way. Work makes it easier.
Mm-hmm.
It does. If you do the work and you're putting in the strategies and you're focused on yourself, but you got to believe that it's possible to get there. And I spend a lot of time putting myself in rooms where I have people that believe that are bigger believers than me, right? Like that have accomplished way more, just so I can listen and learn and be part of that. As we get close to wrapping up, I'm curious on the leadership space. You know, we talked a little bit before we got on here about the mindset, and you and I both we could probably talk mindset for hours and just strategize and probably even be better. So we should probably set up a call outside of this just because we're so close anyways to just kind of to build off each other there. But where do you feel the biggest gaps in leadership are right now?
I think the biggest gap I see is people think leadership is strategies and skills. And I think leadership at the base level, strategies and skills will get you there when you're managing a small team. Leadership to me is more about who you are than what you know. And I think
Love that.
we miss the opportunity, in all fairness, because we don't know how to do the work to be the leader who people want to follow, as I mentioned. And so one of the things I walk through my clients with, I'll do in workshops or keynotes or whatever, is how do you define your leadership identity? And it's this process. It's really easy. I mean, you do it in an hour, 2 hours, and then you iterate. Where ultimately it lands you to what are the values and the principles you will hold yourself accountable to as a leader. And some of those are in place to keep you accountable to who you really want to be, because you have tendencies that pull you off track. And some of them is like things that I just fundamentally believe in, like core values, but in the business space. And that I feel like is a game changer, because it gives you a North Star every single day for how you operate. So we aren't pulled into what I should do, or how does this person do it, or whatever it may be, like looking around and taking pages out of people's books instead of being us. And I think that from the person who started leading, and this is my second thing of gaps, is connection is a massive gap. When I started leading, I'm like, this is business. It's all business. I'm hired to drive a number. I'm hired to build out a sales force. And every single moment of every team call, every interaction was about business. Sure, there's a, hey, how was your weekend? But it wasn't genuine. And I learned that when you truly connect with your people, you create that feeling that makes people feel understood, and it's not about being seen. It's not about having a relationship. It's about understanding the person. And when you understand them, you can motivate them, you can drive them, you know how to coach them and communicate in the tough moments. And that connection isn't about knowing them so you can lead them. It's about knowing them as people. And in that drives commitment, motivation, that loyalty that makes people want to be better. And we all benefit when that happens. So I think it's leading from who you are and connection.
Yeah, when I talk to the leaders that I coach or I work with and do some consulting with, I always make sure that everybody on their team that they deal with understands where he wants to go or she wants to go as the company or as the growth pattern, and make sure that their vision is big enough to fit everybody else's inside. Mm-hmm. Because too many times we'll say what our vision is, and I won't even ask you, Whitney, you're part of the team. I won't ask you what your vision is or where you want to be in 5 years. And then you don't feel like you're part of it. But if you feel like you're part of it, we tend to go in a bigger area, or we tend to move faster in that direction. But then the biggest connection for me is when I realize what's called your burn. My coach, Ben Newman, taught me this, and it's where your why and your purpose ignite. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why you get up and do the things you do. And I have a tattoo in my arm that says CJ's watching. That's my son that passed away in 2020. And he's my burn, right? Like I know he's watching me do what I'm doing, so I better do it right? I better make him proud. So when I don't want to feel like showing up, when I don't feel like making those calls, when I don't feel like becoming a better leader, I have that on me. I'm not saying go get a tattoo if you're not into tattoos, that's cool. But it's something that is the driving force to make sure I do what I'm supposed to do on a daily basis to get better. And I think too many times leaders are more numbers focused, and that's what they're worried about. I used to say, I don't run the company based off of profit and loss. I don't. I run it based off of how I can impact and change people's lives.
Mhm.
And when I do that, my profit and loss takes care of itself.
I'm totally aligned with that. And I've had to remind myself that as I shifted into starting my own business, is like I had revenue goals and I have all these metrics, and I looked at them and I still may hit them because there's still time left in the year. But I really said, man, like the number of clients that hire me for one thing, hire me for another and another, that's impact. The number of people that send me the message like, hey, this person that we hired you to work with, here's what I'm seeing. Like, that's what I care about more, right? Because when you do good work, maybe the numbers and the results don't come right when you want them, but they come. They almost always come in time. You said something just a moment ago about belief. And there's one thing I will say is one of the greatest things my mom taught me was to believe in yourself always. And she used to, she's talked to me about this. She said, you can be anything you want to be if you believe in yourself and you want it bad enough, that you're willing to do the work, that you're willing to push past the challenges. And that's something I've always carried with me, because a lot of times, the dream that we dream, no one would ever dream for us. It's like the whisper in the back of your mind. And I think belief is so fundamental to success, because the people that do miraculous things, that reach a level of greatness in whatever space you're in, I don't care if it's in parenting or, a business, it is because they believe in themselves when no one else does. Yep. And so that's one thing I would say is, how do you really assess where you're at and buying into you? And for others to buy in, you got to be bought in 100%.
Yeah. Do you believe it's possible? Do you believe that you have what it takes to get there? Right. Two of the biggest beliefs I ask myself a lot. And yeah, it's been, I left corporate America in 2023. It's been an incredible 2 years. And I'm so far off from where I want to be revenue wise, but I'm definitely way above what I thought was possible, honestly. Like, as I keep growing it, cause I make my numbers so big, Whitney, like if I hit it, it's like new Bentley, right? Like that's where I put the numbers at, but it's not really, again, like when I coach these kids, it's not about, yes, we'd love to be a state champions, but who do we become on the way to becoming a state champion or to compete at that level? But when people start understanding it's more about who they become than the results,
yes,
they will crush any result that's like, it's not even, it's amazing on what you can do and get to, right? It just is. And we have some lucky kids, right? For what you do now. And then I've got my little boy and who's going to be grown up with the son of a coach. Like, he's going to have so much coming at him that he's going to be able to think and act differently than what everybody else does. And your kids have the same benefit from you.
I mean, I gotta double down on what you said, because it is so valuable. The biggest payoff you will get by chasing something, chasing a big goal, is a transformation of yourself. That is the number one thing for anybody who's won an award. And I'm guessing that the people listening to this, I know they're high achievers. They've won an award, right? And think about the moment when you accept that award. It is so fleeting. Think about the lasting impact of how it changes you. That, to me, that is a feeling I will chase every single day, is the growth and the transformation that comes when you do this work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So as we get really close here to finishing up, who's your ideal client? Who is it that you really feel like you can help the most?
Yeah, the number one, my biggest market is, I typically am working with folks who have 5 to 15 years of leadership experience. I do have probably 25% of my business who are just high achievers that are doing the mindset work, the growth work, that need a mirror to really look into and to push them to get to the next level. But I'm talking about I'm working with leaders on how do they develop themselves to multiply the results in their business, and to do it in a way where every single day they could step into any situation with confidence and with certainty as to how they're going to proceed. Because that's a big game changer for how they experience their jobs, right?
Yep, without a doubt. Are you accepting new clients right now?
I sure am. Yep. I do a lot of one-on-one work, and I'm gonna be launching a new program actually in early 2026. I think my first cohort will go live in February, and that's going to be called the Leadership Accelerator, which will be for some of these folks that aren't ready for one-on-one, right? But really want to get deep into up-leveling their leadership skills. So there'll be more to come on that. But yeah.
Love it. Love it. So what's the best way if people want to know more or learn more, or connect with you, Whitney, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think the number one way is look me up on LinkedIn. You can go to my website at whitneyfaires.com and you can connect with me there. And yeah, I love to have a strategy call with anyone that's going, gosh, how should we work together? Am I in the right place? I'm sure you're like me. It's like, there's some people you say, it's probably not the right time. Like, let's get through this, or here's where you need to be, because you got to be ready for it. It's work, it's fun work, but it's work.
Yeah. Like I told someone from the stage the other day, if you want to be coached by me, just know it's not the easy button.
It is not.
Right. I'm not going to do the work for you. If you want to grow, that's what we need to do. And if you're ready to make the commitment, I have a feeling you believe in the same things because of the great conversation we just had. Look, Whitney, thank you so much for being on here today. And I can't wait to, we're so close, man. We got to hang out more.
We do. We'll meet for lunch. That's it's now on the record. So
it is. It's on the record big time now. It is for sure. But thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the One Hand at a Time podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and were able to take away something that will help you elevate your career, business, or just your personal life in general. If by any chance you would like to take your journey even further than just this podcast, then please consider going over to chriswelton.live and potentially scheduling a time to work with Chris to develop the steps to help you get to the next level. If you also are interested in learning even more about Chris Welton, then please visit his Instagram or YouTube channel, One Hand at a Time. There are weekly uploads giving you a true glimpse at his life and all of the motivation and knowledge that he has to offer. Again, thank you for listening, and we hope to have you back on the next episode.